I waited to record this on a Tuesday because with what happened on Sunday may have genuinely been one of the worst losses that the Tennessee Titans have had in the 2020s. Actually, I would say it's the worst, mostly just because the Texans aren't really that good. But I waited until Tuesday to record this one, not because I had other stuff going on, which I did, but the ultimate reason that I decided to do this was because, well, I had no idea what was going to happen. And, well, nothing happened, so it was kind of a waste. Anyway, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and woof. This is not going to be a fun game to cover. I'm not going to lie. This was genuinely a terrible loss, and honestly, like, a lot of people ask me, like, hey, you're a Titans fan, how are you not intensely miserable? And for the first 3 weeks I wasn't, because Cam Ward looked decent enough, and I just knew that another bad performance could get this coaching staff or give them the boot. And I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe I could get some, maybe, I could start building up some positive energy. But my spirit is crushed about this team, man. I'm not even going to lie. Like, this was a terrible week for this team. I thought it would be enough. It wasn't. And, well, that's where we are, okay? So, let's get into today's episode. Positives and negatives to start out. Before I get into this, I do want to say the positives are 3, the negatives are 8. I don't think I've had more than 5 negatives on an episode the entire time that I've adopted this system, just for context. So let's talk about the positives, though, because there were some, 3, but still. Starting out with Jeffrey Simmons. Okay, look, I feel so bad for Big Jeff. This is going to be his big breakout year. I just know it. Like, he finally has developed as a pass rusher. He's still doing just as good as he usually does in the run blocking, and just overall is kind of a menace whenever he plays football right now. But the unfortunate thing is he's stuck on a terrible team. So whenever he puts up a performance like this, it's not going to go as recognized. Like, he is playing at a defensive player of the year level right now. Don't believe me? Ask any other Titans fan. He is absolutely insane. He has been the lone bright spot of this football team consistently through the first 4 weeks. There was another one that was consistently a bright spot, but we'll get to him. Jeffrey Simmons is a freak of nature. He's absolutely amazing. And here's the thing, right? I do not want to trade Jeffrey Simmons. I don't. And honestly, if some team came knocking on the door and only offered 1 first-round pick, I would reject it. You'd start getting to me if you said 2 first-round picks and we'll give you a receiver. That would be the only condition that I would even hear you out on a trade. But if that does happen, I mean, I would honestly kind of be fine with trading Big Jeff, as much as I hate to say that. Because here's the truth, we're not going to be competing anytime soon. So why let Jeffrey Simmons suffer on this team as we are? And why not go let him be a part of a contender, go win a Super Bowl or something? Anyway, just again, Jeffrey Simmons, absolutely amazing. And Big Jeff, if you're watching this, I love you. Anyway, next one. Tony Pollard. Okay, this one was just kind of me searching for positives, because here's the thing. Tony Pollard actually had some pretty decent runs. He was just kind of an okay back, if I had to say. Like, he wasn't, like, amazing, but he was fine. That's really the only way I can describe it. He was just kind of fine, right? And that's really all I got. But here's what I do want to mention. Did you notice that every single big run play that Tony Pollard would break off, it was a fast developing run play? Like, I mean, as in snap, immediately handed off to Pollard, he goes running. That's something that we need to do more of, quite frankly. Like, we need to stop doing these slow developing run plays, because here's the thing, the O-line's not strong enough for that. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, again, whenever we did fast runs, it actually was working pretty stinking well. So maybe it's not that the O-line isn't strong enough. Maybe we're just not playing to the O-line's strengths. Now, obviously, That's probably not completely true, but it is just a theory overall. And I just really hope that we fix that. And Tony Pollard could actually start putting up some pretty decent numbers, like some really actually good numbers, if we were to do that. But that probably won't happen for a while. So just holding out hope on that. Anyway, last positive that I wanted to mention before getting into the negatives. This is one that hasn't been mentioned as much. Cedric Gray. Now, here's the thing, right? You see 17 tackles and you think, wow, that's really good. But is there a chance that maybe he let up in coverage a little bit too much and that's why? No. Trust me, most of these were not catch-up. Were not catch-up tackles like Kenneth Walker would get last year whenever he would get completely destroyed on a route and then he would have to just sprint straight over to the other person and get a tackle, and then that went toward a stalling. No, Cedric Gray was actually doing some really good stuff. His PFF grade was a 90, for goodness sake. This dude has a bright future, and here's the thing, right? I said this all throughout the offseason, that one of these linebackers is going to end up being really solid. I didn't know which one, but I knew it. Not because of anything else, but Ran Carthon, as much crap as I give him as a GM, he knows linebackers. Like, he drafted Fred Warner back in San Francisco, and whenever he made the Cedric Gray pick, I was extremely confident in the fact that he was going to end up being okay. And James Williams, even, like, I was thinking, okay, maybe that guy's going to end up being pretty good. Like, both guys, I was thinking, wow, this could go very well, right? I was excited to see which one ended up being good. And I thought that I would at least be able to watch a competitive team, but unfortunately, I was incorrect. Cedric Gray, though, was a really big bright spot in this week. And I'm really hoping that he continues to be a bright spot so that way we can see another young piece keep developing and that we know, hey, there's at least somebody on this roster that's worth keeping. Anyway, now on to the negatives. All 8 of them. Let's start out with this one, Cam Ward. Okay, look. The interception, right? Did Alec Edelman drop it? Yes, he did. Could he have caught it? Yes. Was it a good throw? No, not at all. Like, look, Cam Ward had his worst game by far during this week. Like, just not really hitting throws all that well. His footwork was all over the place. Like, just really not a great week from Cam Ward. And I'll be honest, here's the thing, right? There are a lot of people saying we're going to ruin Cam Ward. I don't think that's the case. Look, I personally do not believe that we can ruin Cam. I believe that Cam Ward has that moxie, that confidence about him that you just cannot take away. He's not like Bryce Young, which I've been seeing a lot of comparisons for, where Bryce Young was, kind of like, he's not like shy, but he's definitely a little bit more timid than your average NFL quarterback. Same thing goes with Marcus Mariota. Even the same thing goes for Jake Locker. Like, that's like, those guys were timid. They were just kind of to themselves, and they just were not going to work out because it didn't feel like that they had that moxie about them, that, oh yeah, I can be great. I just got to work for it. And that's the thing that I think Cam Ward has that you just cannot take away. Same thing, and here's the thing, same thing but opposite with those guys, Jake Locker and him, go for Vince Young. Vince Young had the moxie, but the moxie became arrogance. It wasn't a serious confidence. It was more of insecurity, in my opinion. And also, you would see a lot that he was just not coachable. And honestly, I more so blame the Titans front office for forcing Jeff Fisher to draft Vince Young for that failure than I do Jeff Fisher himself. Look, did Jeff Fisher potentially ruin Vince Young? There's a chance of it. I'll still say that, even though I do think that Vince Young was kind of uncoachable. I mean, like, Mac, Coach Mac even said so. Yeah, Mac Brown even said so. Like, I just gotta let Vince be Vince. But I do think that that he was just not going to end up being great. But I do think that if Matt Lionheart gets drafted by the Titans and he and and Vince Young swap places, and then Vince Young has a year to learn under Kurt Warner, I think that is a completely different reality that I am very curious to see what would have. Do I think that Matt Leinart would have ended up being good? Goodness knows. Probably not, but that's just an interesting thing to think about. Anyway, no, Cam Ward had a bad game in this, and again, I give him some slack because first off, his receivers weren't getting open. The schemes were way off in this game. The O-line was terrible. So I think that's what's explaining the weird footwork is that he just doesn't have enough confidence in his O-line to just stand back there, stay calm, and sling it, That is my biggest – that was the one thing that I do worry about for Cam Ward is his O-line. But also, there's something else whenever it comes to that whole Cam Ward situation. Yeah, I give him the benefit of the doubt also because he was playing against that DeMeco Ryans-led defense, which, look, the Texans have been bad this year. There's no doubt about that. But their defense has been very, very strong through the first few weeks of the season. There is no denying that in any sort of way. So we've also got to think about maybe, DeMeco Ryans threw some stuff at Cam that was really confusing to him. Maybe there was also, the fact that the defensive line was going to be in the pocket almost every single play, and that the secondary wasn't really going to, do much. or the secondary was going to do everything more than was what I was trying to say. But yeah, no. Again, Cam Ward, bad game. Am I worried? Not really. Next thing, the receiver core. Again, I don't know how much to blame this on them, but it just wasn't really a standout. Calvin Ridley wasn't really that involved in this game, which is a negative that's for later. And Alec Manor, he was involved. He tried to do his best, but, Cam Ward wasn't throwing the best balls, and he did drop one of the deep balls, but again, Alec wasn't really that great this week. What else is there? Tyler Lockett, old. That's really all there is to it. Van Jefferson can't create separation for the life of him, even with how bad the schemes are. That's always been a problem with Van Jefferson. That's why I blame that on him. And Bryce Oliver, he needs to see the field more. I want to see Bryce Oliver more on the field than I do Van Jefferson or heck, even Tyler Lockett. Let the young guy get a chance. This season's probably not going to amount to much. Why not let Bryce Oliver play? Maybe cut, Van Jefferson or Tyler Lockett and then elevate Xavier Restrepo onto the active roster. I would love to see that. I would love to see those guys actually get a chance to get in-game experience and see if we have anything in them, if we found a gem of some sort. I do think that there is a chance that we found a gem with Bryce Oliver, but I really wish that he would actually be able to play. Yeah, again, just receiver core wasn't that great. O-line, you've heard it. You've heard it all. I'm not even going to say too much. Just the O-line wasn't really that great, and it speaks to a bigger issue that Dan Moore almost didn't play because of an illness. I think that we all know what he was doing, but since this is a PG program, I am going to not say anything further than that. Rest of the D-line, again, another obvious one. This was the one chance that the Titans D-line had of actually doing something against an O-line this year. And, well, it didn't happen. This was, again, in my opinion, the only week that this D-line was actually going to create any pressure. And, well, not really. We only got one sack on the day. We could have definitely gotten more with a better pass rush, but that's the unfortunate thing about not having the best D-line. Again, the secondary wasn't really that great. Amani Hooker played bad. And obviously, you've heard all of the stuff about L'Jarius Sneed. Oh my gosh. Hey, who's Nico Collins again? Jeez, that is going to go down as an all-timer in a few years. Like, nobody finds it funny now, but whenever the Titans are finally good again, goodness knows when that's ever going to be. But if the Titans are ever good again, that's going to be something that we look back on and be like, yo, you remember whenever L'Jarius Sneed made fun of Nico Collins and had a 33-yard completion on his head, and he acted like nothing happened? Like, that is something that makes me laugh. And honestly, it was the most enjoyment I got out of this game, was just seeing that and then posting who onto Twitter. By the way, if you haven't followed me, go ahead and do that. It'll be in the description. But anyway, golly, that secondary was bad. Joey Sly, I'm worried that he got mental after last week, attempting 2 60-yard field goals and, missing them right and left. It got him a little bit mental about even just the shorter field goals that he feels like that he needs to do on those, what he did for the 60-yard field goals. And again, he's just not really like the best kicker, so just overall not really great by Sly either. Cody Barton, again, you've probably heard about him, just not really great coverage. He wasn't really, he got a sack. That was really about it. He got a sack, and then everything else was really bad on his part. And just overall, not really great. Was completely outperformed by the younger dude on the other side with Cedric Gray. And just overall was not really that impressive. And you're starting to see why he hasn't been able to stay consistently with a specific NFL team. Now, that may also be just because he may have given up on the season already, like us, and like probably a decent amount of the players have. Speaking of which, my last negative is the coaching staff. How many weeks in a row has this been? No, seriously, how many? Like, I want to get a tally going on because I do think that it has been pretty consistent from the end of last season to the beginning of this season. Like, they have just been on here so much, specifically Brian Callahan, because, like, they just aren't doing the best overall job. That's really all there is to it. And you've probably heard all about it. 3rd and 12, you run it up the middle, and then you have to punt. All of this stuff that you hear about this coaching staff not having the team disciplined enough. They can't go for 2 halves. The offense is terrible, and the defense starts to crumble after 1 half, which honestly is kind of understandable whenever you think about the fact that they don't get any rest because of how bad the offense is. And you hear all this stuff about the coaching staff, but I want to bring something else up. What about the way they deal with the media, specifically Callahan? Like, Denard is fine with that. Fossil is great, absolute professional whenever it comes to that. Nick Coles is annoyed right now, rightfully so, but usually he's fine with it. But Brian Callahan really does not deal with the media well. Like, look, I know that some people have their problems with Paul. I mean, I have some of my problems with Paul Karski too, but overall, I actually really respect him for the fact that he's one of the only media members that is willing to actually push the coaching staff on things and not just ask one question and then die after that. Like, I do appreciate that whenever somebody gives a bullcrap answer, he'll call it out. It's just like, I know that you've probably seen it, like, whenever Paul was trying to ask a question and then Callie got all upset and up in arms about it, and he's been doing that since the beginning of the season, since literally week 1, whenever he was asked about the decision the past 3 times in a row. They've been beefing ever since. And honestly, I just wish that Callahan could just deal with that better. Like, here's the thing, right? Look, again, I've stressed the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of Vrabel. Y'all know that. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of him whenever he was here. Even though he was stable, I felt like that he just wasn't a good fit for this roster. But at the very least, he could handle the media well, and he was good at clock management. That's also another thing. But the truth is, again, he could handle the media really well. Callahan cannot do that. Whenever the media asks him a hard question, he whines like a baby. And if he's asked about a bad decision that he made, he blames it on somebody else. Every single time. One of those 2 things happens. There have been moments where he's been like, okay, that was on me, but they've been few and far in between. And that is my biggest problem with Brian Callahan, is the lack of accountability. And again, who knows? Maybe something happens with him and, it just clicks. I don't think it will, but who knows? Okay, speaking of the coaching staff, again, going to squeeze this in at the very last second. Head coaching candidates, I think I have a more solidified list than I have the past couple of weeks where it's just been all over the place. But I think that this is the list that I have gotten myself down to. First off, I do want to mention honorable mentions. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. I think that he is actually a really strong offensive mind that's just really underrated. Only reason I'm giving him an honorable mention is because he just really hasn't been brought up that much, which honestly shocks me, but maybe there's a reason behind that. And also his dad or the other Kubiaks haven't really been the best head coaches. So maybe he follows in line. But I do think that he could be a very solid head coach if given the chance. Another one. This is a dark horse head coaching candidate, and I am here to tell you about him before anybody else gets a hold of him. Anthony Campanile, something like that, defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, so I want to give a quick shout out to one of the Twitter users that I interacted with recently, because that dude was instrumental in getting me on this train. But the dude is an absolute rock star, the coach that is. But hey, Twitter account user, you're a rock star too. But this dude, he is a great defensive mind. His defense has been balling for the past couple of weeks. He has been very solid with the players, it seems like. He handles the media well. He's very fiery. There's a specific, this is what sold me. There was a specific clip on Hard Knocks. You've probably seen it from the Miami in-season Hard Knocks whenever he was the linebackers coach. Trust me, if you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it right now. But he has like the Heffley type of defensive mind, and that's the type of thing that I'm interested in. The only reason that I gave you a profile on him wasn't because I wanted to rave about him. It was just more so because, again, he's an interesting candidate, and honestly, I don't see why he's not getting talked about more. So, Anthony Campanile. All right, now getting into the actual list, number 5, Mike McCarthy. He just brings stability, and he's a good offensive mind that could probably help a little bit with Cam Ward's development. Like, this is a guy that I would honestly really like. Like, obviously, there are two sections of the Titans fan base right now. There's one that absolutely hates the idea of Mike McCarthy and one that absolutely loves it. I tend toward the loving side, more so just because, again, stability, we know what we're going to get. He's going to be at least decent, serviceable, that is. And just overall, I like the idea of a Mike McCarthy. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not, but that is somebody that I would trust in getting Cam Ward back down to earth and getting his coolness, his moxie back. Number 4, I have Todd Monken. Now, watch out for Anthony Campanile, depending on how the defense does for the next couple of weeks, to take this dude's spot. Look, okay, I like Todd Monken. I think that he has some good offensive ideas, but there's no denying that his offense has struggled a little bit the past couple of weeks. Outside of that, like, week 1 masterclass, like, there have been some weird and questionable play calling decisions, but again, he still has a good offensive mind. I still think that his experience would bring a lot to the table. And if anything, it would definitely help Cam Ward's development. I mean, there's no coincidence that once he got hired, Lamar Jackson instantly became a better passer. I like Todd Monken. Number 3, I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one. Robert Saleh, former head coach of the New York Jets. Now, I know, he didn't do a good job in New York. You know who else didn't do a good job in New York? Todd Bowles. And he has been a very capable head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as of recent. But I'm mentioning Robert Saleh, and you can clip this if you want to. But my reasoning for Robert Saleh is the fact that I think that he is one of the best defensive minds in the NFL that had to deal with a lot of crap in New York. And my thing with him is the criticisms that I hear of him are never really that great. Well, he was bad. Well, it's the Jets. Not that many head coaches end up coming out of there saying, "Hey, I can be successful." That's why I think Rex Ryan is a little underrated, but that's beside the point. Also, one of the biggest complaints about him, and this was probably his biggest, is that he could not hire an offensive coordinator. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you first take a look at it, it doesn't really seem all that great. Mike LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett. Again, not really the best of jobs by either of them whenever they were the offensive coordinator for the Jets. But, and I won't excuse Nathaniel Hackett. He was an absolute disaster from the very beginning. I will say, though, Todd Downing, play calling was interesting. But anyway, no, both of them were disasters from the beginning, Todd Downing and Nathaniel Hackett, that is. We knew that as Titans fans, but I am here to say that I do 100% believe that Mike LaFleur would have ended up being okay if you don't draft Zach Wilson and you take Justin Fields with that second overall pick. I think things are significantly different if that happens. And honestly, I do think that that Robert Saleh was actually decent at hiring an offensive coordinator. He hired Mike LaFleur, who I do think is an underrated offensive mind in the league. But my problem with that is that they drafted Zach Wilson. And then Aaron Rodgers came and everything got weird. Like, look, I don't think Robert Saleh was given a fair chance with the New York Jets. And I would be very happy to give him that second chance. Even if it doesn't end great, I do think he deserves a second chance in this league, and I think that he'll get it. I hope it's with us because I know in my mind that he's going to be a good head coach. His teams were always disciplined. His defense was always great. He wasn't bad with clock management. Like, everything that he could control, he was great at, except for the offense, which he could not control. That's all I have to say about that. That's why I think Robert Saleh is a good coaching candidate. And honestly, he could move up this list because my number 2 is Joe Brady. And I'm thinking about taking him off of this list, not because I don't love Joe Brady. I do. I think that he's one of the innovators in the offense right now. But I think it's unrealistic now because the Bengals are absolutely terrible. They are awful at football. Like, they are so bad. So bad. But the thing is, they have Joe Burrow injured right now, and that offense isn't clicking. And now the Bengals finally have an excuse to get rid of Zach Taylor, and that's something that most Bengals fans have been begging for years now. So my thing is, Joe Brady has the connection with Joe Burrow in college. He reunites with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I think that he'll go on and do some really great things with that tandem, and I do think that he ends up being the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals at the end of the season. And it's not fair, I know it, that Joe Burrow has to get hurt, which then leads to Zach Taylor getting fired, and an actually good offensive mind goes in there, which, by the way, if he does get hired, watch out, NFL. Joe Burrow with a competent offensive mind is something that is very dangerous. But just overall, I really like Joe Brady. I just don't think he's going to be the coach of the Titans. And number 1, Jesse Minter, realistic, great defensive mind, absolute innovator. Overall, really great idea for a head coach. Anyway, that's it for today's episode. Very gloomy episode, but there is hope in the future. I promise you. I promise you there is hope. And I'm thinking about actually making a video about that on the YouTube page. Podcasters, you're going to have to go over to the YouTube channel if you want to see that. But again, I don't know what else to say. Titans are bad. It's really about it. And it's going to end up being the same sentiment that I came into with this episode until something changes. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.